$3,125,000. That is the number. Nobody put it in the calculator you used on your lunch break. Nobody printed it on the retirement brochure your HR department handed you during open enrollment. And almost every online retirement tool in existence is quietly, systematically hiding it from you. Not by accident, but because the number that actually sets you free is not the number that sells financial products. Here is what I mean. You have probably heard the 4% rule. The idea that you can withdraw 4% of your portfolio every year in retirement without running out of money. It is widely cited. It is taught in financial planning courses. It shows up in every retirement calculator you have ever touched, and at a surface level, it is not wrong. But here is what every article, every calculator, and every advisor using that framework skips entirely. The 4% rule tells you the withdrawal rate. It does not tell you the cost of living number you are actually trying to replace. And when you build the real math from the ground up, using current median American household spending, not theoretical withdrawal percentages, the number you need in your portfolio to never work again is not $1 million. It is not $2 million. It is $3,125,000. At the current median American household annual expenditure of $125,000, which is the actual Bureau of Economic Analysis figure for 2024, applied to a 4% withdrawal rate, that is the portfolio size required to sustain your life indefinitely without depleting principal. Most people do not know that number. Most people are building a plan around a number they have never actually calculated. And the gap between what they think they need and what they actually need is the reason 61% of Americans, according to a 2025 Northwestern Mutual survey, say they are not confident they will have enough money to last through retirement. They are not wrong to be worried. They are just worried about the wrong thing. I want to hold you on that for a second before I go any further, because what I just described is not a personal failure. It is a design problem. The financial services industry built its public-facing education around simplified rules and round numbers because simplified rules and round numbers keep you engaged with products. $1 million is a clean target. It fits on a billboard. $3,125,000 does not. And the industry knows that if you understood the real target from day one, you would ask very different questions about whether the products you are being sold get you anywhere near it. So before we go anywhere else, I want you to hold one image in your mind for the rest of this video. Think about a pipeline. Not a metaphor yet, a literal water pipeline. The whole point of a pipeline is to move water from a source to a destination continuously. The water flows as long as the source has enough pressure. When the source runs dry, the pipeline stops. That is a retirement built on principal drawdown. You are draining the source. Every year of retirement, the pressure drops. Somewhere around year 19 or 22 or 27, depending on your sequence of returns, the pressure hits zero. The pipeline stops. You are still standing there. Retirement built on investment income is a completely different structure. The source never drains because you are only ever spending the output. The pressure never drops. The pipeline runs for as long as you need it to. The difference between those two retirement architectures is entirely determined by one number, the size of your portfolio on the day you stop working. Not roughly, not approximately. Exactly. And right now, most people building toward retirement do not know what that exact number is for their own life. That is what we are going to fix today. In a few minutes, I am going to show you a table that the financial media has never run. A side-by-side comparison of what you actually need based on 4 specific annual spending levels, and what the industry's simplified frameworks would have told you to target instead. The gap in some rows is over $1 million. But before I get there, I need to show you why most people are solving the wrong problem entirely. And this is the part that is going to reframe everything. You think the problem is your savings rate. It is not. The actual problem is that you are building toward a number you have never precisely defined, using a rate of return you have never confirmed, is net of all costs, aiming at a retirement date you picked because it rhymes with Social Security eligibility. And all of that together means you are running hard in a direction you set 15 years ago and never checked against the actual destination. Let me give you a name to anchor this. Sandra. 51 years old, registered nurse in Columbus, Ohio, earns $94,000 a year. She has been contributing to her 401k for 22 years without missing a single paycheck deduction. Her current balance is $347,000. She has an employer match. She has never panic sold. She has, by most measurable standards, done everything right. And yet Sandra has a problem she has not fully named yet. She is going to retire at 67. She has 16 years left to compound. Her current trajectory, based on her existing balance and her current contribution rate of 6% of salary, puts her final balance at approximately $890,000 at a 7% annual return, which is conservative, net of inflation, and consistent with Vanguard's long-term return assumptions for a diversified index portfolio. $890,000. At 4% withdrawal, that generates $35,600 per year in portfolio income. Social Security adds, at current full benefit projections, approximately $22,000 annually for someone with her earnings history, according to the Social Security Administration's 2025 average benefit data. That is $57,600 total income in retirement. Sandra's current household spending, mortgage paid off by 63, is approximately $78,000 a year. She is $20,000 short every single year. And she has never run this specific calculation. She has a balance she checks quarterly. She has a vague sense that she is behind. She does not have a number. We will come back to Sandra. But I want to sit with what her situation actually reveals. Sandra is not in trouble because she lacked discipline. She is in trouble because the framing she was given, save as much as you can, maximize the match, let compounding do the work, is technically accurate and strategically incomplete. It is the right advice inside the wrong framework. The framework is missing the destination. And a journey without a precise destination is not a financial plan. It is optimism with automatic payroll deductions. Here is the specific failure point in the way retirement is usually taught. Most retirement education begins with the contribution. How much are you saving each month? What is your savings rate? Are you maximizing your 401k? These are contribution side questions. They are the right questions once you know where you are going. But the first question, the question that should come before any of the others, is never asked. The first question is, how much does your life actually cost? And how large does a portfolio need to be to generate that amount every year, from returns alone, without ever touching the principal? That is the pipeline number. That is the freedom number. Everything else is inputs into a calculation you have never completed. The financial media skips this question for a structural reason. There is no product attached to it. Calculating your exact portfolio freedom number takes a spreadsheet and 20 minutes. It generates no advisory fee, no fund management expense, no premium subscription. The industry survives on complexity, and the most powerful financial calculation available to any individual investor is also the simplest one. Multiply your annual spending by 25. That is your freedom number at a 4% withdrawal rate. The industry would rather you optimize endlessly between funds, debate asset allocation, pay for active management. None of that conversation happens if you know your number, know your gap, and know exactly how many years of disciplined index investing close it. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of this kind of analysis. I run the numbers the industry does not run for you every week, and the YouTube algorithm only surfaces these videos to people who have subscribed. One click keeps this content coming. Now, let me show you the table nobody has published. 4 annual spending levels, 1 variable. The math does not care about your feelings. $50,000 a year in retirement spending requires $1,250,000 in portfolio. That is the number most retirement articles gesture toward when they say 1 million should be enough. It is enough if you spend $50,000 a year. The median American household spent $125,000 in 2024, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. That is not a luxury lifestyle. That includes housing, food, transportation, healthcare, and the kind of travel that gets described as modest. At that spending level, the freedom number is $3,125,000. Not 1 million, not 2 million. $3,125,000. For a household spending $150,000 a year, still not wealthy by most coastal American standards, the number is $3,750,000. For a household spending $200,000 a year, which describes a dual-income professional household in a major metro area with 2 kids and a mortgage, the number is $5 million flat. Look at that table for a moment. Every row uses the same math. Annual spending divided by 0.04. The 4% withdrawal rate is the only constant. The annual spending is the only variable. And yet the results span a range of $3,750,000 between the lowest and highest row. That is the range of retirement outcomes that comes entirely from one number most people have never precisely calculated for their own household. The default retirement calculator on most banking websites asks you, how much have you saved? How much do you contribute monthly? What is your expected return? When do you want to retire? It does not ask you what your life actually costs. It does not calculate your freedom number. It calculates your balance and leaves you to decide whether that balance is sufficient without giving you the tool to answer that question. It is like a GPS that tells you how fast you are driving, but never asks where you are going. Now here is the anti-diagnosis, and I want you to pay close attention because this is where everything reframes. You think the problem is that you are not saving enough. The actual problem is that you are saving toward a target you have never calculated, which means you have no way of knowing whether what you are saving is enough, too little, or, in some cases, actually on track and you just cannot see it because you are missing the destination coordinate. Those are completely different problems with completely different solutions. The first problem, not saving enough, is solved by behavioral discipline, budgeting, cutting spending, increasing income. Hard, slow, requires willpower. The second problem, missing the target number, is solved by a 20-minute calculation you can do right now with no additional income, no lifestyle change, and no new financial products. The calculation gives you a number. The number tells you your gap. The gap tells you exactly what contribution level closes it and in exactly how many years. Suddenly, the frustration of checking your balance and feeling behind has a name. It is not that the strategy is broken. It is that you have been navigating without coordinates. This is the thing the financial services industry does not want you to understand. Because the moment you know your exact freedom number, the conversation changes entirely. You stop asking, which fund should I be in? And start asking, does my current contribution rate close the gap to my specific number in time? The first question generates advisory revenue. The second question is answered by arithmetic. A brokerage account you contribute to automatically and never trade generates almost nothing in fees, commissions, or management income. The industry does not survive on simplicity. It survives on the gap between what you know and what you need to know. Let me bring Sandra back. She is 51. $347,000 saved. 16 years to retirement. Current trajectory lands her at $890,000. Her freedom number, based on her actual household spending of $78,000 per year, combined with projected Social Security of $22,000, means her portfolio needs to generate $56,000 per year in withdrawal income. At 4%, that is a required portfolio of $1,400,000. She is $510,000 short on her current trajectory. That is not a catastrophe. That is a calculable gap. And a calculable gap is a completely different psychological object than a vague sense of being behind. A calculable gap has a solution. Here is Sandra's. If she increases her contribution rate from 6% to 13% of her $94,000 salary, that is an additional $583 per month redirected before taxes, her 16-year trajectory changes entirely. The new terminal balance at 7% annual return is approximately $1,380,000. She closes the gap almost completely. Not through a different fund, not through timing the market, not through any strategy more complex than redirecting $583 a month from spending to contributions. $583. That is less than the average American car payment, which hit $734 in the first quarter of 2025, according to Experian. Sandra does not need a second job. She does not need to sell her house. She needs a specific number and the arithmetic that connects it to a contribution level. The industry gave her neither. We just ran it in 3 minutes. Now I want to go one layer deeper, because there is a cost hiding inside most portfolios that eats the gap between the freedom number and the balance people actually accumulate. and it operates invisibly for decades before the damage is visible. When Sandra checks her 401k balance, she sees a number. What she does not see is the fee drag, quietly redirecting a portion of every year's compounding away from her account and toward fund managers who, according to S&P's SPIVA scorecard published every 6 months since 2002, underperform basic index funds over 15-year periods more than 85% of the time. The average actively managed equity mutual fund expense ratio in 2024 was approximately 1.0%, according to Morningstar's annual fund fee study. If Sandra's plan is charging her 1% annually, and she also has an advisor charging the standard 1% of assets under management, her total annual fee drag is 2%. At 7% gross return, she is netting 5%. At 5%, her 16-year terminal balance is not $1,380,000. It is $960,000. The fee structure alone costs her $420,000 in retirement wealth. Not from a bad investment decision. From a cost structure she never audited because nobody told her to look. Here is what that number means in pipeline terms. $420,000 at 4% withdrawal generates $16,800 per year in perpetual portfolio income. Sandra loses a $16,000 per year income stream every year forever to fee drag she never examined. The treadmill moved faster the moment she enrolled in that plan, and nobody told her. The fix is not dramatic. If Sandra's plan offers a total market index fund, and the majority of corporate 401k plans do, often from Vanguard or Fidelity with expense ratios below 0.1%, switching her entire allocation to that fund on a Tuesday afternoon closes most of the fee gap permanently. One login, one allocation change. The decision takes 11 minutes. The impact compounds for 16 years. That is the arithmetic of structural simplicity. Now, the pipeline metaphor I introduced at the start needs one more layer, because there is a version of retirement planning that looks like a pipeline but functions like a tank with a slow leak. And most people are building the leaky version without knowing it. A retirement built on a fixed withdrawal rate from a static portfolio is a tank. The tank has a certain amount of water. You open the tap 4% per year. The tank drains slowly. If your returns are good and your sequence of withdrawals is favorable, the tank refills faster than it drains and you die with water left over. If your sequence is bad, if the market drops 30% in year 1 or 2 of retirement, which is statistically possible in any given 2-year window, you are pulling from a shrinking base at the worst possible moment. The tank drains faster. You run out earlier. The research on this, originally published by William Bengen in the Journal of Financial Planning in 1994, showed that the 4% rule survived the historically worst sequences when applied correctly. What it did not survive was people applying a static 4% withdrawal to a portfolio that had just dropped 30%, because the math assumes you adjust. Most people do not adjust. They need the income. The tap stays open. The tank drains. The pipeline version of retirement is structurally different. You build a portfolio large enough that 4% of its value covers your spending needs. Your withdrawals come from returns, not principal. In good years, the portfolio grows. In bad years, you have a cash buffer, 1 to 2 years of living expenses in short-term, low-volatility assets built deliberately in the 3 to 5 years before retirement. That covers spending while you wait for the portfolio to recover. You never touch the invested principal at the bottom of a down market. The pipeline stays pressurized. This structure requires a larger portfolio to implement. It requires knowing your freedom number precisely, and it requires building the cash buffer before you retire, not after the market drops and you are already panicking. That is the architecture most retirement calculators never describe, because describing it requires telling you your real number, and your real number is larger than the number on the brochure. We are going to close the loop on Sandra and give you 3 specific actions in the next section. But before we do, if this kind of analysis is useful to you, subscribe to this channel. I cover the numbers the industry skips every week, and the only way YouTube shows you these videos is if you are subscribed. 1 click. Here's the part most retirement content never reaches, because it requires admitting something the industry finds inconvenient. The freedom number is not the same for everyone, and the distance between your current trajectory and your actual freedom number is not a character judgment. It is a calculation. A calculation you can run right now. A calculation that turns vague anxiety into a specific gap, and a specific gap into a specific plan. Let me put one more concrete scenario on the table before the three actions, because I want you to see this math work across a different set of circumstances, so you know it is not a special case built around Sandra. David is 47. High school history teacher in suburban Nashville, Tennessee. Earns $68,000 a year. He has been contributing to a state pension plan for 19 years and has a small supplemental 401k with approximately $58,000 in it. His pension, at full retirement at age 65, is projected to pay $31,000 per year based on his current service credits and salary. His household spends approximately $82,000 per year. Social Security at full retirement age adds an estimated $19,000 annually per the Social Security Administration's benefit estimator tool. That leaves $32,000 per year that his portfolio needs to generate. At 4% withdrawal, David's freedom number from investable assets is $800,000. He has $58,000. He has 18 years. The gap is $742,000. At 7% annual return, conservative, net of inflation, consistent with Vanguard's long-run projection, closing that gap requires contributing approximately $1,640 per month for 18 years. David earns $68,000 gross. After taxes and benefits, his take-home is roughly $4,200 a month. $1,640 is 39% of his take-home pay. That is not achievable without a structural income change. But here is what changes the math entirely, and what most teachers in David's situation do not know. Tennessee's supplemental retirement plan, like many state plans, allows catch-up contributions beginning at age 50. The IRS catch-up contribution limit for 401k plans in 2026 is $7,500 per year, on top of the standard $23,500 limit. Starting at 50, David can legally contribute up to $31,000 per year before taxes. If David increases his income modestly, summer tutoring, adjunct community college instruction, both realistic for a credentialed teacher, by $20,000 annually beginning at age 50, and directs the majority of that income into catch-up contributions, his trajectory shifts materially. 15 years of maximized contributions starting at 50, added to his existing $58,000 base compounding for 18 years, brings his terminal investable balance to approximately $760,000. Combined with pension and Social Security, David's retirement income is within $12,000 of his annual spending. A gap that 1 year of part-time post-retirement work or modest spending adjustment closes entirely. David did not need a new strategy. He needed the number, the gap, and the specific mechanism, catch-up contributions, that the system provides, but almost nobody uses, because nobody explained the math behind it. According to Vanguard's 2025 How America Saves report, only 21% of eligible plan participants over 50 take advantage of catch-up contributions. 79% are leaving a legally available acceleration tool completely unused, not because they cannot contribute more, but because nobody showed them what the catch-up contribution specifically does to their terminal balance. That is the pattern across every situation I have described today. The tools exist. The math works. The information is withheld, not through malice in most cases, but through a distribution system that profits more from complexity than from clarity. And the cost of that withheld information is measured in years of unnecessary work and decades of unnecessary anxiety. Now, 3 actions, specific, low friction, executable this week. Action 1. Calculate your freedom number today. Open any spreadsheet or use a basic calculator. Find your actual annual household spending, not your income, not your budget target, your actual spending from the last 12 months of bank and credit card statements. Subtract any guaranteed income you will have in retirement, pension payments, projected Social Security from the SSA.gov estimator, any annuity income. The remaining number is what your portfolio needs to generate annually. Multiply that by 25. That is your freedom number at a 4% withdrawal rate. Write it down. This is the first time most people have ever seen their actual target. It will be larger than you expected. That is not bad news. That is the most valuable financial data point you have ever generated, because now you have coordinates. Action 2. Calculate your gap and your required monthly contribution to close it. Take your freedom number. Subtract your current portfolio balance. The result is your gap in today's dollars. Then use any compound interest calculator. There are free ones at investor.gov, run by the SEC, and enter your current balance, your expected annual return of 7% conservative, net of inflation, consistent with Vanguard's published long-run assumptions, and your years to retirement. Find the monthly contribution that grows your current balance to your freedom number by your target date. If that number is more than you currently contribute, you now know your contribution gap in specific dollars per month, not as a vague sense of being behind, but as a number with a dollar sign in front of it. If it is less than you currently contribute, you are ahead of your freedom number and you have never known it because nobody ran this calculation for you. Action 3. Audit your plan's expense ratios this week. Log into your 401k or IRA. Find the Fund Details tab. Look for the expense ratio column on every fund you currently hold. If any fund shows an expense ratio above 0.5%, search within the same plan for a comparable total market or S&P 500 index fund. In most corporate plans, one exists with an expense ratio below 0.1%. If the index option exists, switch your allocation. This is not a market timing decision. This is not a strategy change. It is a cost reduction on a product you are already buying. Use the compound interest calculator to run what the fee difference costs you over your remaining years to retirement. The number will be large enough that you will not close the browser and go back to whatever you were doing before. 3 actions. No extraordinary discipline required, no lifestyle destruction, no timing the market or picking the right stock. The freedom number calculation takes 20 minutes. The gap calculation takes 10 minutes with a free online tool. The expense ratio audit takes 12 minutes logged into an account you already have. 42 minutes of work that most people will never do because nobody told them the specific output was worth a specific dollar amount in retirement income. Here is the cost of not doing this today. Every year you contribute to a plan, without knowing your freedom number, you are flying without a destination. You might be on track. You might be significantly behind. You have no way of knowing. And the year you spend not knowing is not a neutral year. It is a year of compounding that happens at your current contribution level, which may or may not be the level that closes your gap in time. At 7% annual return, one additional year of the right contribution level on a $200,000 portfolio adds $14,000 of compounding before your next dollar goes in. That is the annual cost of the 42-minute calculation you have not done yet. Not theoretical, calculable. Sandra ran the numbers. She discovered her gap was $510,000. She increased her contribution from 6% to 13%. She switched to her plan's index fund option, dropping her blended expense ratio from 1.4% to 0.08%. She did not change her lifestyle in any way she described as meaningful. The new contribution came from eliminating one subscription service, brown bagging lunch twice a week, and redirecting a raise she had received 6 months earlier and never formally allocated. She did not feel deprived. She felt for the first time in 2 decades of investing like she was navigating with a map instead of a general direction. The pipeline is pressurized. The source does not drain. The water flows as long as you need it, every year, whether you wake up on a Tuesday morning and feel like working or not. That is what $3,125,000 in a low-cost index portfolio actually buys you. Not a yacht, not a private jet, not a second home on a coast, just the permanent, unconditional option to stop trading your time for income on a schedule someone else set. The industry hid the number because the number makes the product unnecessary. You now have the number. The pipeline is yours to build. Start with 42 minutes. If this video changed how you think about your retirement plan, subscribe to this channel. The algorithm buries videos like this unless people subscribe, and I run this kind of analysis every single week. One click keeps the math coming.